My wife called me jealous in front of her family. She said he was like a brother. Then her sister asked why he was paying for her hotel room. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. The smell of charcoal smoke drifted across the backyard, mixing with the scent of fresh-cut grass and the faint sweetness of summer roses climbing the fence. Daniel Mercer stood near the blue Coleman cooler, one hand wrapped around a bottle of beer he hadn't opened. The condensation had already soaked through the label. Around him, Brianna's family filled every corner of the yard. Her uncle manned the grill, flipping burgers with the confidence of a man who'd done this every 4th of July for 30 years. Cousins clustered near the picnic table, their voices rising and falling in overlapping waves. Children, he'd lost count of how many, chased each other past the swing set, their shrieks sharp and joyful. Daniel watched them all with the detached focus of someone observing a play he'd seen too many times. He knew his role. Stand here. Smile when appropriate. Nod at the right moments. Don't speak unless spoken to. Brianna's laughter cut through the ambient noise. She stood near the deck stairs, surrounded by her younger cousins, gesturing with the animated energy of someone performing rather than conversing. Her sundress caught the light as she moved. Yellow with white flowers, new, purchased sometime in the last month without his knowledge. He recognized the pattern now. New clothes appeared. New charges showed up on statements. The connection was simple once you stopped ignoring it. You good, man? Daniel turned. Brianna's cousin, Jake, or maybe it was James, stood beside him, holding a plate loaded with potato salad. Yeah, Daniel said. Just hot. Tell me about it. The cousin, definitely Jake, wiped his forehead with his free hand. Humidity's killing me. You working tomorrow? Probably. We've got a site inspection Monday morning. Construction never stops. Not in summer. Jake nodded and moved toward the shade. Simple conversation. Expected pleasantries. Daniel had become skilled at both. He took a drink from the beer he'd finally opened. Warm now. He'd been holding it too long. Brianna appeared at his elbow without warning. Her perfume arrived first, something floral and expensive, another new purchase, followed by her hand on his arm. You look miserable, she said, smiling but speaking through her teeth. Can you at least pretend you want to be here? I'm fine. You're sulking. I'm standing. Her grip tightened slightly. My mom keeps asking if something's wrong. What am I supposed to tell her? Daniel looked at her directly. Tell her I asked you a question and you haven't answered it yet. The smile froze on her face. Not here. Why not here? Because this is a family gathering, Daniel. Can we have one afternoon where you don't? Where I don't what? He kept his voice level calm. Ask reasonable questions? Brianna's mother called from across the yard. Something about bringing out the desserts. Brianna released his arm and raised her hand in acknowledgement. The bright performer returning instantly. Coming. She leaned closer to Daniel, voice dropping. We'll talk about this later. We tried talking about it 3 times. You changed the subject 3 times. Because you're being paranoid. Then explain it to me. Right now. Brianna exhaled sharply through her nose. The sound she made when Daniel was being, in her words, impossible. Fine. You want to do this here? In front of everyone. I want a straight answer. She stepped back, creating space between them, and raised her voice just enough for nearby conversations to pause. Okay, since you're so determined to embarrass me, let's talk about it. What exactly is your problem, Daniel? The shift was immediate. Calculated. She'd weaponized his question, turning it from private inquiry to public accusation. Several family members had turned toward them now, conversations trailing off mid-sentence. Daniel felt the familiar weight settle over him. The knowledge that whatever he said next would be dissected, analyzed, judged. Brianna had positioned herself as the reasonable one, the one willing to address his concerns. He was now the jealous husband making a scene at a family cookout. He spoke quietly, choosing each word with care. I asked why someone named Colton paid for your hotel room in Chicago. Last month, during your work conference, the yard didn't go silent. That would have been too dramatic, too obvious. Instead, conversations continued at a lower volume, but attention had shifted. Everyone was listening now while pretending not to. Brianna's laugh came out louder than necessary. Oh my God, here we go. She turned to include her sister Heather in the conversation, as if seeking alliance. He's been obsessing over this for weeks. It's honestly exhausting. Heather, standing near the deck with her own husband, didn't smile. What about Chicago? Nothing about Chicago, Brianna said. A colleague helped me with a room charge because my card wasn't working, and somehow that means I'm having an affair. Daniel watched her perform. She was good at this. The eye roll, the exasperated tone, the appeal to others for support. She'd done it before, in smaller ways. When he'd asked about late nights, unexplained expenses, the phone she kept face down on every surface. Your card was working, Daniel said. I checked. Checked? You mean you went through my accounts like some kind of, what detective? I pay the bills. I see the statements. So you admit you're tracking everything I do. I'm asking about one specific charge. Brianna's father, Harold, approached with the careful steps of a man trying to defuse something before it escalated. Hey, kids, maybe we can talk about this inside? No need to. No, Dad, it's fine. Brianna's voice carried a wounded quality now. The wrong party trying to maintain composure. Daniel clearly has something he needs to say, so let him say it. Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, and saw nothing behind her eyes except strategy. This wasn't confusion or hurt. This was control. I asked a simple question, he said. Why did Colton pay for your hotel? He's like a brother to me, Brianna said immediately. Everyone at work knows that. We've been friends for years. Then why didn't he tell you to use your own card? Heather asked. The question came from Brianna's own sister, and for half a second, Brianna's mask slipped. Confusion flashed across her face. Why wasn't Heather defending her? Because it was easier, Brianna recovered. We were both checking in. He put both rooms on his card. I paid him back the next week. You didn't, Daniel said. The words hung in the warm air. Cicadas buzzed in the trees. Someone's phone buzzed and went silent. Excuse me. Brianna's voice had edges now. You didn't pay him back. I checked all the transactions. No payment to him. No Venmo. No check. No cash withdrawal that matches the amount. Brianna's jaw tightened. Maybe I used cash I already had. You don't carry cash. Maybe I did that week. There's no ATM withdrawal before or after Chicago. I looked. Oh my God. Brianna turned to her mother. Do you hear this? He's interrogating me about every dollar I spend. This is what I've been dealing with. This is what he does. Her mother, Patricia, wore the expression of someone caught between instinct and evidence. Honey, if you paid him back, just show Daniel the transaction. Then everyone can relax. I shouldn't have to prove anything, Brianna shot back. I'm his wife, not his suspect. You're both, Daniel said quietly. The yard shifted. Some people moved away, suddenly very interested in their plates. Others leaned in, no longer pretending disinterest. Brianna's eyes widened. The look of someone genuinely shocked, genuinely hurt. How dare you say that to me? In front of my family. You made it public, Daniel said. I asked in private 3 times. Because you're suffocating me. Her voice broke slightly, the tears coming now. Real or performed, Daniel couldn't tell anymore. Maybe she couldn't either. You track every purchase. You question everyone I talk to. You make me feel like I'm living under surveillance. I saw a hotel charge that didn't make sense. I asked about it. That's not surveillance. It is when you've been like this for months. She wiped at her eyes, careful not to smudge her makeup. You don't support me emotionally. You're never home. And when you are home, you're checking accounts and making lists and treating me like I'm doing something wrong when I've done nothing except try to survive being married to someone who doesn't trust me. The performance was flawless. Even Daniel felt the pull of it, the small voice in his head that whispered maybe he was being unreasonable, maybe he was too controlling, maybe this was his fault for asking questions instead of just believing her. Then he remembered the other charges, the patterns, the cash withdrawals, the savings that had shrunk from $23,000 to $8,000 in 18 months. If you did nothing wrong, Daniel said, then you can show me the proof you paid him back. Brianna stared at him. The tears stopped as suddenly as they'd started. So what are you going to do if I can't? Divorce me? The question was meant to sound absurd, a hyperbolic escalation that would make him look cruel. But her eyes were calculating, watching him, waiting to see if he'd back down. Daniel didn't answer. He set his beer down on the cooler and walked toward the side gate. Behind him, Brianna called out, "That's right, walk away. That's what you always do." He kept walking. The house was quiet when they returned after midnight. Brianna had stayed at the cookout for 3 more hours, laughing and chatting as if nothing had happened. Daniel had sat in his truck in a grocery store parking lot, windows down, watching families load bags into their vehicles. Now she moved through the kitchen with sharp, deliberate movements, keys dropped on the counter, purse thrown on the chair, shoes kicked toward the wall. "You made me look abusive," she said. Daniel stood in the doorway between kitchen and living room. "I asked a question, in front of my entire family, after you refused to answer it in private. Because there's nothing to answer." She spun toward him. "Nothing happened. Colton is a friend. The hotel was a mistake. I don't know why you can't just trust me." "Because you're lying." The word landed like a slap. Brianna's face went rigid. "I'm lying," she repeated slowly. "Yes. About what exactly?" "The hotel, the money, Colton, all of it." Brianna laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You don't know what you're talking about. Then explain it to me." "I don't owe you an explanation. You're my wife. You owe me honesty. And you're my husband." Her voice climbed. "You're supposed to support me, not attack me at family gatherings like I'm some kind of criminal." Daniel moved into the kitchen, slowly, keeping his voice level. "I didn't attack you. I asked why another man paid for your hotel room. And I told you he was being nice. Nice isn't paying $600 for someone else's room. How do you even know how much it costs?" "Because I looked at the statement from his credit card. The one you mentioned in your email to him. The one where you thanked him for covering everything that weekend." Brianna froze. Complete stillness, like someone caught in a photograph. "You read my emails. You left your laptop open. I saw his name. I read the thread. That's a violation of my privacy. That's me finding out my wife is lying." She moved in, crossing the kitchen in 3 long strides, closing the distance between them until she was inches from his face. "You went through my personal emails like some stalker. I saw evidence of an affair." "It wasn't an affair." "God, Daniel, not everything is some conspiracy. He's a friend. We work together. Sometimes friends help each other out. By paying for hotels? By covering everything? What else did he cover, Brianna?" Her hand came up fast. Not to hit him. She stopped herself, but the motion was there, the impulse visible. Daniel didn't flinch. Brianna lowered her hand slowly, breathing hard. "You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me what I'm missing. Explain the hotel. Explain the emails. Explain why you never mentioned Colton before Chicago." "I have mentioned him. Once. Last year. You said he was annoying." "People change. From annoying to paying for your hotel room. That's quite a change." Brianna turned away, arms crossed, staring at the dark window over the sink. "I can't do this anymore." "Do what?" "This. You." The constant accusations and paranoia, and she broke off, shoulders shaking slightly. "I feel like I'm drowning, Daniel. I can't breathe in this marriage." Daniel watched her reflection in the window. "Calculating. Always calculating. You made yourself look dishonest," he said quietly. "Not me." She didn't turn around. "Get out of the kitchen." "It's my kitchen, too." "Then I'll leave." She pushed past him, heading for the stairs. "I can't even look at you right now." Daniel stood alone in the kitchen, listening to her footsteps cross the bedroom floor above him. A drawer opened. Clothes rustled. The bathroom door closed. He sat down at the kitchen table and pulled out his phone. The email thread was still there, archived in a folder he'd created titled Evidence. He read through it again. Every message, every casual mention of late nights and inside jokes, and "Don't tell Daniel Hill, just worry." The pattern was clear once you stopped pretending it wasn't. Daniel didn't start tracking finances because he wanted to find problems. He started because the numbers stopped making sense. It happened gradually. First, the savings account dipped $500. Brianna said she'd used it for car repairs, emergency brake work that couldn't wait. Daniel believed her. Why wouldn't he? 2 weeks later, another withdrawal. $800 this time. Brianna said her mother needed help with medical bills. Patricia had been dealing with back pain, So again, it seemed reasonable. Then the credit card statement arrived with charges he didn't recognize. A restaurant in Grand Rapids. A boutique hotel in Ann Arbor. Purchases from stores Brianna had never mentioned shopping at. I had a work trip, she'd said when he asked. Didn't I tell you? She hadn't. Must have slipped my mind. It was last minute. The explanations always came quickly, confidently, with just enough detail to sound plausible, but never enough to verify. Daniel had nodded, filed the statement away, and tried to believe her. But the charges continued. Cash withdrawals, always from ATMs far from their house. Airline points that disappeared from their shared account with no corresponding tickets purchased under his name or hers. Their savings, which had once climbed steadily toward $30,000, began to shrink. First to $23,000, then $19,000, then $14,000. He asked about it over breakfast one Tuesday morning, keeping his tone casual. Hey, I noticed the savings dropped again. Did you need to pull money out for something? Brianna had looked up from her phone, chewing toast. Yeah, I had to pay for that conference registration. Remember? How much was registration? Like $4,000. That seems high. It was a premium package. Includes networking events and everything. She'd smiled. It's an investment in my career. I thought you'd be supportive. I am supportive. I'm just trying to understand where our money is going. Our money. Her eyebrows lifted. I work too, Daniel. I contribute. I know you do. So why are you acting like I'm stealing from you? I'm not. You literally just questioned me buying something for my career. That's what you're doing. The conversation had ended there, derailed before he could point out that no conference charge appeared on their statements. Instead, there were charges to restaurants and stores nowhere near the conference city. He'd let it go that day, and the next day, and the day after that. But he didn't stop tracking. He created a spreadsheet. Dates, charges, amounts, explanations. He started taking photos of statements, backing up email receipts, building a record of something he didn't yet want to name. By late April, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every charge Brianna made had a story attached. Every story had enough truth to sound believable. But when Daniel cross-referenced her explanations with actual dates, locations, and amounts, nothing matched. The Grand Rapids restaurant charge happened on a Tuesday. Brianna said she'd been home. The boutique hotel in Ann Arbor appeared during a week she claimed to be visiting her sister in Kalamazoo. The conference with the $4,000 registration fee never appeared on any credit card, just cash withdrawals totaling $3,800 a week before she supposedly attended. Daniel began checking her car's GPS history, routes to places she'd never mentioned, stops lasting hours in parking lots near hotels. He felt sick doing it. Felt like the paranoid husband Brianna accused him of being. But the evidence kept accumulating, each new piece fitting too perfectly into a pattern he'd been trained to recognize through years of construction management. When small problems align into a system, they're no longer accidents. They're design. One evening in early May, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with printed statements spread across the surface. Highlighted charges, circled dates, sticky notes with questions he'd written to himself. Brianna had come downstairs for water and stopped in the doorway, staring at the papers. What is this? I'm trying to understand our finances, Daniel said. By obsessing over every purchase? By figuring out where $23,000 went. Her face had hardened. I told you where it went. You told me different stories for different charges. None of them add up. So you don't believe me. I believe the numbers. And the numbers say we're missing a lot of money with no clear explanation. Brianna had walked over, snatched up one of the statements, and waved it at him. This is insane, Daniel. You're treating me like a suspect instead of your wife. I'm asking questions. You're interrogating me. I'm trying to understand what's happening to our savings. What's happening is you've decided I'm guilty of something, so now you're building a case. She threw the statement back on the table. This is toxic. You know that, right? This behavior is toxic. Daniel had looked at her then, really looked at her, and asked the question he'd been avoiding for weeks. Are you having an affair? Brianna's face had gone through 3 expressions in rapid succession. Shock, hurt, then anger. She settled on hurt. How could you ask me that? Because the evidence suggests it. The evidence? Jesus Christ. Daniel, listen to yourself. You sound like a prosecutor. Then tell me what's actually going on. What's going on is my husband doesn't trust me. That's what's going on. She'd left the kitchen, then returned a moment later. And for the record, no, I'm not having an affair. But the fact that you'd even ask tells me everything I need to know about this marriage. She'd gone upstairs. Daniel had stayed at the table, looking at the numbers that didn't lie even when people did. He'd spent the next 3 weeks gathering more evidence. Not because he wanted to be right, but because he needed to know the truth before making any decision he couldn't take back. The truth revealed itself slowly, then all at once. Colton's name appeared in Venmo transactions Brianna had forgotten to hide. Small amounts. $200 here, $150 there. Always labeled with innocent phrases like lunch or coffee or thanks. But when Daniel cross-referenced the dates, they corresponded with cash withdrawals from their joint account. Brianna was moving their money to herself, then to Colton, disguising it as social payments. The hotel in Chicago was the breakthrough. Daniel had found the original confirmation email in Brianna's archived messages. The booking was made under Colton's name. 2 rooms, adjoining, paid for entirely by his credit card. But the messages after the trip were what mattered. Brianna thanking Colton for an amazing weekend. Colton saying, "We should do this more often." Brianna responding with, "Just don't tell anyone, my husband is already suspicious." That last line sat in Daniel's chest like a stone. Not denial, not defense, just acknowledgement that she was hiding something from him on purpose. He'd printed everything, created a folder, dated each document, cross-referenced bank statements with emails, text messages, GPS data, and credit card charges. By the time the family cookout arrived, Daniel had a complete timeline of 6 months of deception. Not suspicion, not paranoia, evidence. The night after the cookout, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay on his side of the bed, the side he'd occupied for 7 years of marriage, listening to Brianna breathe beside him. She'd fallen asleep easily, like she always did. No apparent guilt, no restless movement, just the slow, steady rhythm of someone unburdened. Daniel stared at the ceiling fan turning above him, counting the rotations. He'd loved her once, really loved her, not the infatuation of early dating or the excitement of new marriage. The deeper kind, the kind built on partnership and trust and shared goals. They'd met at a county fair in Traverse City. Brianna had been working a booth for her father's landscaping business, and Daniel had stopped to ask about mulch prices for a construction site. She'd made him laugh. Something about comparing wood chips to Cheerios, and he'd return the next day to ask her to dinner. Their courtship had been simple. Movie nights at the local theater, walks along Lake Michigan, long conversations about where they wanted to build their lives. Brianna had dreams of working in marketing. Daniel wanted to move up from construction labor to project management. They'd supported each other through classes, job changes, frustrations with family. The wedding happened on a September afternoon at a barn venue outside town. Small gathering, immediate family and close friends. Brianna had looked beautiful in a simple dress she'd found on sale, and Daniel had meant every word of his vows. He thought she had too. The first year of marriage had been good. They'd moved into this house, a modest 3-bedroom with a yard that needed work but had potential. Daniel had renovated the kitchen himself, installed new flooring, painted every room in colors Brianna chose. She'd decorated with thrift store finds and plants from her father's nursery. They'd hosted friends for dinner, talk about children someday, discussed vacation plans. When had it changed? Daniel rewound through the memories, searching for the moment things shifted. Maybe it was the promotion Brianna got 2 years ago, the new position that came with travel and late nights, and a supervisor named Colton who she'd mentioned exactly once. Or maybe it was earlier, gradual, the slow accumulation of small disappointments that built into resentment she never voiced directly. He'd worked long hours. That was true. Construction management meant 6-day weeks in summer, early mornings, late evenings, emergency calls that pulled him away from dinners and plans. He tried to balance it, tried to be present when he was home. But Brianna had started filling the absences with activities he wasn't part of. Work trips he didn't hear about until after they happened. Nights out with colleagues she didn't invite him to meet. A second phone she'd bought for work contacts that she never left unattended. He'd noticed, but hadn't pushed. Hadn't wanted to be the controlling husband, the jealous partner. He'd trusted her to tell him if something was wrong. She never did. Instead, she built a separate life. One with different rules and different truths, and, apparently, someone else. Beside him, Brianna shifted in sleep. Her hand brushed against his arm. Reflex, not affection. Daniel moved to the guest room. He took his pillow and closed the door quietly behind him. He didn't sleep there either. Heather called Daniel the next morning while he was driving to a job site. "Can we talk?" Her voice was careful, measured, the tone of someone approaching a fragile situation. "Yeah, of course. Not on the phone. Can you meet me for coffee? There's a place near my office." "When?" "Now, if you can. I'm on my lunch break." Daniel glanced at the dashboard clock. 11:47 a.m. He had a meeting at 1, but the job site could wait. "Send me the address." The coffee shop was nearly empty. Mid-morning rush over. Afternoon crowd not yet arrived. Heather sat at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her, one pushed toward the empty chair across from her. "Black, right?" she said when Daniel sat down. "Thanks." They sat in silence for a moment. Heather wrapped both hands around her own cup, steam curling up toward her face. "I'm sorry about yesterday," she said finally. "You didn't do anything wrong. I should have said something earlier. Pulled you aside instead of." She shook her head. "Brianna called me last night. She was upset." "I know. She said you accused her of cheating in front of the whole family." "I asked about a hotel charge." "Yeah." Heather met his eyes. "Why did someone else pay for her hotel?" Daniel took a long breath, deciding how much to share. Heather wasn't Brianna. She was logical, direct, less likely to weaponize information. But she was still Brianna's sister. "I don't know," he said. "She won't explain it." "Won't or can't?" "Both, maybe." Heather nodded slowly. "She's been different lately. I noticed it at Easter. She was on her phone constantly. Wouldn't let anyone else touch it. And when I asked about work, she got defensive." "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know. Months, maybe." "Mom's noticed too. She won't say it directly, but she's worried." Daniel wrapped his hands around his own cup, grateful for the warmth. "Have you asked Brianna about it?" "Sort of. Not directly." Heather looked out the window at the parking lot beyond. "We've always been close, you know. Growing up, we told each other everything. But in the last year, there's been this distance. Like she's keeping secrets on purpose." "She's keeping secrets." Heather's gaze snapped back to him. "What do you mean?" Daniel pulled out his phone, opened his photos, and scrolled to the folder marked Finance Records. He turned the screen toward Heather. "This is our savings account. 2 years ago, we had almost $30,000. That's gone now. Down to 8. Heather leaned forward, squinting at the numbers. "Where did it go?" "Hotels. Cash withdrawals. Purchases I can't track." He swiped to the next image. "This is the credit card statement from April. See these charges? All for trips Brianna said were work conferences." "Were they?" "I called the conference organizers. She wasn't registered for any of them." Heather's face went pale. "Oh God, there's more." Daniel swiped through more screenshots. "This is the email thread with Colton, the guy who paid for Chicago." Heather read in silence. When she finished, she set the phone down carefully, like it might break. "She's having an affair." "I think so, yes." "For how long?" "At least 6 months. Maybe longer." Heather sat back, processing. Her coffee sat forgotten, cooling on the table. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to confront her with everything. Show her the evidence. Give her a chance to explain. And if she doesn't," Daniel met her eyes, "then I'm filing for divorce." The word hung between them. Final. Irreversible. Heather didn't try to talk him out of it. Didn't suggest counseling or patience or giving Brianna another chance. She just nodded. "Do you need anything from me?" she asked. "Just honesty. When this comes out, and it will, she's going to tell your family I'm lying. She's going to make me look controlling, paranoid, abusive. I need people who know the truth. I'll tell them what I know, even if it hurts Brianna, especially if it hurts Brianna." Heather's voice was firm. "I love my sister, but she's wrong, and you deserve better than this." Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief exactly, but validation. Someone else saw it. Someone else acknowledged the pattern. Thank you, he said. They finished their coffee in companionable silence. Before leaving, Heather hugged him, the first genuine affection Daniel had received from Brianna's family in months. Be careful, she said. When you confront her, she's going to fight. I know. I mean really fight. She's going to say things designed to hurt you, to make you doubt yourself. Daniel nodded. I'm ready. Heather looked at him with something like pity. I don't think anyone's ever ready for that. Daniel chose a Wednesday evening. No work emergency scheduled. No family events. No excuses for Brianna to deflect or delay. He came home at 5:30, earlier than usual. Brianna's car was already in the driveway, parked at an angle that suggested she'd been in a hurry. Inside, she stood at the kitchen counter scrolling through her phone, still wearing her work clothes, a blue blouse and black pants that fit her well. She looked up when he entered, expression neutral. You're home early. We need to talk, Daniel said. About what? He set his briefcase down and pulled out the folder he'd been carrying. Thick manila, edges worn from weeks of handling. He placed it on the kitchen table. About this. Brianna glanced at the folder, then back at him. What is it? Proof. Her face shifted slightly. Not fear, not quite, but wariness. Proof of what? Everything. The affair. The money. The lies. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Jesus, Daniel, are you still on about this? I'm not on about anything. I have evidence. Evidence. She said the word like it was ridiculous, overblown. Of what exactly? Daniel opened a folder and spread documents across the table. Bank statements with highlighted charges. Printed emails. Screenshots of text messages. GPS data showing routes to hotels, to addresses that weren't work, to places Brianna had never mentioned. This is the hotel charge in Chicago, he said, pointing to the highlighted line. Colton paid for it. 2 rooms. Adjoining. You stayed there 3 nights. I told you he was being nice. This is your email to him. Daniel slid the printed message toward her, where you thank him for covering everything and say just don't tell anyone. My husband is already suspicious. Brianna stared at the email. Color drained from her face. These are cash withdrawals, Daniel continued, pointing to another statement. 8 times in 4 months. Always round amounts. Always from ATMs nowhere near our house. And this, he pulled out another document, is your Venmo history. Payments to Colton that match the withdrawal amounts. You hacked my accounts, Brianna said quietly. I have access to our joint accounts. And you left your laptop logged in. So you invaded my privacy. I found out you're stealing from us. I'm not stealing. Her voice rose. That's our money. I can use it. For what? Hotels with another man? Expensive dinners I don't see receipts for. For things I needed. What things? She didn't answer. Her hands had curled into fists on the table, knuckles white. Daniel kept his voice calm. Even, this is your GPS history from March through May. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, you drove to the Comfort Inn on Route 37. You stayed there between 2 and 4 hours, then came home and told me you'd been working late. Brianna's jaw tightened. You tracked my car. I used the GPS you installed for safety. Remember? You wanted it in case the car got stolen. This is insane. She pushed away from the table, pacing. You're tracking me, reading my emails, going through my accounts. Because you gave me reason to. I gave you nothing. You're paranoid. Then explain it. Daniel gestured to the documents. Explain the hotels. Explain the money. Explain Colton. Brianna stopped pacing and turned to face him. Her expression shifted, the performance beginning. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand what it's been like for me, she said, voice breaking slightly. You're never home. You were constantly. I felt so alone. So you had an affair. I didn't have an affair. She wiped at her eyes. Colton is a friend. Someone who actually listens to me. Who makes me feel like I matter. And that's worth stealing $23,000? I didn't steal it. I used it. For what? For things that made me feel alive again. For experiences. For moments where I didn't feel like an afterthought in my own marriage. Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the strategy behind every word. The tears calculated. The vulnerability performed. "You're lying," he said. "I'm telling you how I feel. You're deflecting. I asked you to explain specific charges, and you're talking about your feelings. Because my feelings matter." She moved closer, voice rising. "You don't get to reduce everything to transactions and bank statements. This is about us. About how you've made me feel worthless and controlled, and I've never controlled you. You're literally standing here with a folder full of surveillance. I'm standing here with evidence of theft and infidelity." Brianna's face contorted. "I haven't been unfaithful. You've been spending our money on another man. You've been lying about your whereabouts. You've been staying at hotels with him. We never slept together." The admission hung in the air between them. Daniel felt it land, not as a relief, but as confirmation. She'd said they never slept together, which meant she'd been with Colton in every other meaningful way. The distinction was semantic, designed to preserve some technical innocence. "So you had an emotional affair," Daniel said. "I had a friendship that required lying, hiding, and stealing. I didn't steal from you, from us. You stole from us." Brianna's chest heaved, her breathing ragged. "You're doing this on purpose, twisting everything. I'm stating facts. You're crucifying me." Her voice broke into a sob. "I made mistakes, okay? I should have communicated better. I should have told you I was struggling. But this," she gestured at the documents, "this is cruel. You're treating me like a criminal." Daniel gathered the documents back into the folder. "I'm treating you like someone who violated every promise you made to me. So what now?" Brianna's voice was sharp, the tears vanishing as quickly as they'd appeared. "What's your grand plan? You divorce me? Destroy me? I want the truth." "You have the truth." "No, I have evidence. The truth would require you to admit what you did." Brianna laughed, bitter, harsh. "Admit what exactly? That I had coffee with a coworker? That I felt suffocated in this marriage? That I needed something for myself that didn't involve your constant scrutiny? Admit you had an affair and you've been lying about it." "I didn't have an affair." Daniel closed the folder. "Then you won't mind if I call Colton and ask him." Brianna's face went completely still. "Don't." "Why not?" "Because it's none of his business. He's part of this. That makes it his business." "Daniel, please." Her voice softened, the pleading tone returning. "Don't drag him into this. He hasn't done anything wrong. Neither have I. But here we are." He picked up the folder and walked toward the stairs. "Where are you going?" Brianna called after him. "To pack some things. I'm staying somewhere else for a few days." "You're leaving?" He turned back. "You made this impossible. I can't sleep next to someone I don't trust." Brianna's face crumpled. "So you just giving up? Not even going to try to work this out?" "I gave you chances. Multiple chances. You lied every time. Because you wouldn't understand. Try me." She opened her mouth, closed it. The silence stretched long. "That's what I thought," Daniel said, and continued up the stairs. Behind him, Brianna screamed, "You're punishing me for needing attention. That's all this is." Daniel didn't respond. He pulled a duffel bag from the closet and started filling it with clothes. Brianna appeared in the bedroom doorway, arms crossed. "Where are you staying?" "A hotel." "Which one?" "Does it matter? I need to know where you are." Daniel zipped the bag. "No, you don't. I'm your wife." "Then act like it." He moved past her toward the door. She grabbed his arm, not hard, but enough to stop him. "Daniel, please. Don't do this. We can fix this." He looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. The desperation there was real, but he couldn't tell if it was desperation to save the marriage or desperation to maintain control. "Let go," he said quietly. She did. He left the house with Brianna standing at the top of the stairs, silent for once, watching him go. Daniel stayed at a Holiday Inn 20 minutes outside of town. The room was clean, anonymous, and blessedly quiet. He set his duffel on the bed and sat in the armchair by the window, looking out at the parking lot below. His phone buzzed constantly. Brianna calling, texting, leaving voicemails he didn't listen to. He turned the phone face down and tried to breathe. He'd never imagined this. Walking out of his own house, staying in a hotel like he was the one who'd done something wrong. The wrongness of it pressed down on him. Not guilt, exactly, but the surreal weight of watching a life disassemble. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Heather. Mom just called. Brianna told her you moved out. Are you okay? Daniel typed back. I'm fine. Had to leave for a while. She's saying you're being unreasonable. I know. Want to talk to Mom? Not yet. I need to figure out what I'm doing first. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, okay. Call if you need anything. Daniel set the phone aside and opened his laptop. He'd been avoiding this moment, but it couldn't be delayed any longer. He searched divorce lawyers near me. The attorney's name was Margaret Brennan. Her office was in downtown Traverse City, 3rd floor of a brick building with white trim. Daniel arrived 15 minutes early for his consultation and spent the time in his truck gathering courage. Inside, the waiting area was tastefully decorated. Leather chairs, magazines no one read, soft music playing from hidden speakers. The receptionist smiled at him. Daniel Mercer? Yes. Margaret will see you in just a moment. He sat, waited, trying not to think about how he'd reached this point. The door opened, and a woman in her 50s appeared, short silver hair, sharp eyes, professional suit. She extended her hand. Daniel? I'm Margaret. Come on back. Her office was organized chaos. Stacks of files, framed degrees on the wall, photos of children who'd presumably grown into adults by now. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. So, she said, settling into her own chair. Tell me what brought you here. Daniel told her. Everything. The money, the hotels, the evidence, the confrontation. Margaret listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally, but mostly just absorbing information. When he finished, she sat back and studied him. How long have you been married? 7 years. Any children? No. Assets. A house. 2 cars. Some savings, though that's mostly gone. Retirement accounts. Margaret nodded, making more notes. And you have documentation of all the charges you mentioned? Yes. Bank statements, emails, GPS data. Everything. Did you access her accounts without permission? They're joint accounts. And her laptop was open. Good. That matters legally. She set down her pen. Daniel, I'm going to be direct with you. Based on what you've told me, you have a very strong case. Financial infidelity is grounds for divorce in Michigan, and the documentation you've gathered demonstrates a pattern of deceptive behavior. What happens next? We file for divorce, cite irreconcilable differences and financial misconduct. We'll request a division of assets that accounts for her misuse of marital funds. Given the evidence, we can argue against spousal support. She'll fight this. Most people do, but fights require ammunition, and from what you've described, she doesn't have much. You've been meticulous. That helps. Daniel felt something shift in his chest. Not relief, exactly, but direction, purpose. How long does this take? In Michigan? 6 months minimum from filing to finalization, assuming no major disputes. Could be longer if she contests everything. And during that time, you maintain separation. Don't engage in prolonged arguments. Document everything. Keep records of all communications. She's been calling constantly. Stop answering. Let everything go to voicemail. If she threatens you or herself, document it immediately. Daniel nodded slowly. When can we file? I can have papers drawn up by Friday. You'll need to have her served. How does that work? We hire a process server. They deliver the papers to her directly. It's required by law. She has to receive formal notice. Daniel imagined Brianna's face when a stranger appeared at the door with divorce papers. The shock, the rage, the inevitable performance of victimhood. Okay, he said. Let's do it. Margaret smiled, not warmly, but with professional satisfaction. I'll email you a retainer agreement and fee structure. Review it, sign it, and we'll get started. They shook hands. Daniel left the office feeling both lighter and heavier than when he'd arrived. The papers were served on a Tuesday morning. Daniel knew because Brianna called him 37 times in the span of 2 hours. He was at a job site when the call started. He silenced his phone and focused on work, reviewing blueprints, coordinating with subcontractors, solving 100 small problems that arose on every construction project. When he checked his phone during lunch, the voicemails were brutal. The first 3 were shock. Daniel, what the hell is this? Someone just handed me divorce papers. Call me. Now, the next 5 were anger. You coward. You don't even have the guts to talk to me face to face? You sent some stranger to my door. Then came bargaining. Please, Daniel. This is insane. We can fix this. Just call me back. Then sadness. I can't believe you're doing this. After everything we've been through. I thought you loved me. Finally, rage. You're going to regret this. I'm not letting you destroy me. My family will know what you really are. Daniel deleted them all without responding. That night, she showed up at the Holiday Inn. He saw her car pull into the parking lot from his window, her white Honda, unmistakable. She got out and headed toward the entrance. Daniel didn't go downstairs. He locked his door, closed the curtains, and waited. 10 minutes later, someone knocked. Soft at first, then louder. Daniel? I know you're in there. Your truck's in the lot. He didn't answer. Please, just talk to me. 5 minutes. Silence. Fine. Be a coward. Her voice hardened. But this doesn't end here. You're making a huge mistake. He heard her footsteps retreat. From the window, he watched her get back in her car and sit there, staring at his truck. She stayed for an hour before finally driving away. Daniel called Margaret the next morning. She's harassing me, he said. Document it. Save every voicemail, every text, every instance of her showing up. If it escalates, we'll file for a restraining order. Will that hurt her in the divorce? It won't help her. Judges don't look kindly on harassment. Daniel felt a grim satisfaction. Good. Brianna's family started calling next. Her mother, Patricia, left a message asking Daniel to reconsider. Her father, Harold, sent a text saying they should all sit down and talk. Cousins reached out via social media, suggesting he was overreacting. Only Heather stayed silent. She texted once, I'm here if you need me. That's it. Daniel appreciated that more than any show of support. 3 weeks after the papers were served, Patricia called again. This time, Daniel answered. Hi, Patricia. Daniel. Her voice was measured, careful. Can we talk? About what? About Brianna. About what's happening. There's nothing to talk about. She's devastated, Daniel. She made mistakes, yes, but doesn't everyone deserve a second chance? She had multiple chances. She lied every time. She's telling us a different story. I'm sure she is. There was a pause. Then, she says you're being financially abusive, that you controlled all the money and wouldn't let her spend anything without your approval. Daniel felt the anger rise, hot and immediate. He pushed it down. That's not true. We had joint accounts. She had full access. I only started watching the accounts after $20,000 disappeared without explanation. She says she used that money for household expenses. Then she should have receipts. Does she? Silence. Patricia, I don't want to argue with you. I know this is hard, but Brianna is lying. She's been lying for months, and I have documentation proving it. Documentation can be manipulated. I have her emails, her text messages, GPS data from her car, bank statements. All of it points to the same conclusion. Which is what? That she was having an affair and stealing from our savings to fund it. Patricia's breath hitched. Daniel, that's a serious accusation. It's a serious betrayal. What do you want us to do? I want you to ask her for proof. For once, actually demand she back up her story with evidence. If she can do that, I'll listen. But she can't, because she's lying. Patricia didn't respond immediately. Daniel could hear her breathing on the other end, processing. I'll talk to her, she said finally. Thank you. But Daniel, if you're wrong about this, if you're exaggerating or being vindictive, you need to stop. Family is complicated. Marriage is hard. Sometimes people make mistakes without being monsters. I'm not calling her a monster. I'm calling her a liar. There's a difference. Is there? Daniel ended the call. The court date arrived in early August. Daniel dressed carefully. Pressed shirt, dark pants, conservative tie. Margaret met him outside the courthouse. How are you feeling? She asked. Nervous. Don't be. You prepared for this. Just answer questions honestly and calmly. Don't get defensive. Don't let her bait you. She's going to try. Of course she is. But the judge has seen this before. They know manipulation when they see it. They entered the courthouse together. The hallway outside the courtroom was quiet, voices echoing off marble floors. Brianna stood near the opposite wall with her own attorney, a man in his 40s with 2 white teeth and an expensive suit. When Brianna saw Daniel, her face did something complicated. Hurt, anger, and something else, maybe desperation. She dressed carefully too. Modest blouse, knee-length skirt, minimal makeup. The performance of a wronged wife. The bailiff called them in. The courtroom was smaller than Daniel expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. Judge Patricia Holloway presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics. All rise. They stood. Saturday. The judge reviewed the case file. This is a petition for divorce filed by Daniel Mercer against Brianna Mercer, citing irreconcilable differences and financial misconduct. Mr. Mercer is requesting division of assets and denying spousal support. Mrs. Mercer is contesting both. Is that correct? Both attorneys confirmed. Very well. Mr. Mercer, please approach. Daniel walked to the witness stand. The bailiff swore him in. Mr. Mercer, the judge said, can you explain your own words why you're seeking this divorce? Daniel took a breath, kept his voice steady. Your Honor, over the past year, I discovered my wife was having an inappropriate relationship with a coworker. During that time, she withdrew over $23,000 from our joint savings without my knowledge or consent. When I confronted her, she repeatedly lied about the charges, the relationship, and the use of the money. I have documentation of all of this. What kind of documentation? Margaret stood. Your Honor, we'd like to submit exhibits A through G, bank statements, email correspondence, GPS data, and credit card records. The judge accepted the exhibits and spent several minutes reviewing them. Her expression remained neutral, but Daniel noticed her eyebrows raise once. Mrs. Mercer, the judge said, these documents suggest significant withdrawals and charges to hotels, restaurants, and other establishments. Can you explain these expenses? Brianna approached the stand. She'd been crying. Daniel could see the redness around her eyes. Your Honor, I was going through a very difficult time. My husband worked constantly. We barely spoke. I felt isolated and alone. I made some poor financial choices trying to cope. Did these poor choices include staying at hotels with another man? Brianna hesitated. Colton is a co-worker, a friend. We attended work events together. The hotels were legitimate business expenses. Business expenses paid from personal savings? I reimbursed the accounts later. When? Another hesitation. I'm not sure of the exact dates. The judge looked at Margaret. Do the records show reimbursements? No, Your Honor. No deposits matching the withdrawal amounts appear in any account. Mrs. Mercer, where did the money go? Brianna's composure cracked slightly. I spent it on various things. I don't have receipts for everything. $23,000 worth of things. Over several months, yes. Can you provide any proof of what you purchased? Not with me, no. Can you provide it at all? Silence. The judge set down the documents. Mrs. Mercer, let me be clear. These records suggest a pattern of undisclosed spending, including multiple hotel stays with another person while married to Mr. Mercer. You've admitted to those stays, but claim they were professional in nature. However, you cannot explain where the money went, cannot provide proof of legitimate expenses, and cannot demonstrate any attempt to repay the marital savings. Is that accurate? Brianna's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client was under significant emotional distress. I asked Mrs. Mercer, not you. Brianna looked at the judge, then at Daniel, then back at the judge. I made mistakes, but my husband wasn't innocent either. He was emotionally distant. He controlled our finances. He made me feel like I couldn't breathe. Did he prevent you from accessing your own money? Not exactly, but did he monitor your spending to an unreasonable degree prior to these withdrawals? He started checking accounts obsessively. After you'd withdrawn $23,000? Yes. Mrs. Mercer, that's called accountability, not control. Brianna's face flushed. He humiliated me at a family gathering. By asking about hotel charges? By interrogating me in front of everyone. The judge looked unimpressed. You're alleging financial abuse based on your husband asking questions about missing money. Meanwhile, the evidence shows you systematically drained marital savings without explanation. Do you see the disconnect? Brianna's lawyer tried again. Your Honor. Sit down, counselor. The judge returned her attention to Brianna. Do you have anything substantive to add? Brianna wiped at her eyes. I'm sorry. I made mistakes, but I'm financially dependent on him. If he leaves me with nothing. You're employed, correct? Yes. Full-time? Yes. Then you're not financially dependent. You're financially irresponsible. The words landed like a gavel. Brianna's face went white. The judge reviewed the documents one more time, then looked up. Here's my ruling. The marriage is dissolved. Assets will be divided as follows. Mr. Mercer retains the house and primary vehicle. Mrs. Mercer receives her personal vehicle and half of the remaining savings, approximately $4,000. Given the documented misuse of marital funds, Mrs. Mercer will assume responsibility for debts incurred during the marriage related to unexplained charges. No spousal support will be awarded. Both parties are responsible for their own legal fees. Brianna made a sound, half gasp, half sob. Your Honor, her lawyer said, standing quickly. We request time to appeal. Denied. This case is closed. Court adjourned. The gavel struck. Daniel sat very still. He'd expected relief. Victory. Something triumphant. Instead, he felt empty. Brianna was crying openly now, her lawyer speaking to her in low, urgent tones. She looked across the courtroom at Daniel, not with anger, but with complete shock. She'd genuinely believed her performance would work, that tears and accusations would trump evidence. They hadn't. Margaret touched Daniel's arm. Let's go. They left through a side exit to avoid confrontation. Outside, the August sun was brutal. Daniel squinted against it. Congratulations, Margaret said. Doesn't feel like much of a victory. It will. Give it time. What happens now? She has 30 days to vacate the house. After that, it's yours. The financial settlement will be processed within 60 days. You're free. Free. The word felt heavy. Brianna moved out 3 weeks later. Daniel had stayed away during the process, giving her time to pack and leave without confrontation. When he finally returned home, the house felt different. Empty spaces where furniture had been, bare walls where pictures had hung, the smell of her perfume fading slowly from the air. He walked through each room, cataloging what remained. Most of it, actually. She'd taken personal items, clothes, jewelry, a few pieces of furniture she'd brought into the marriage, but left the rest. Maybe out of spite. Maybe because she had nowhere to put it. In the kitchen, he found a note on the counter. I hope you're happy. You got everything you wanted. I hope it was worth destroying what we had. Daniel crumpled the note and threw it away. He wasn't happy, but he wasn't destroyed either. He was free. 3 months passed. Daniel settled into a new routine. Work filled his days. The house slowly transformed. Repainted walls, new furniture, spaces that felt like his rather than theirs. He sold Brianna's car and used the money to rebuild savings. News traveled through Brianna's family in fragments. She'd moved to Grand Rapids, living with a friend. She'd quit her job or been fired, depending on who told the story. Colton had vanished from her life entirely once the divorce became public knowledge. Heather provided occasional updates, though Daniel never asked for them. She's struggling, Heather said over coffee one afternoon. Can't seem to hold down a job. Keeps blaming everyone else for what happened. That sound familiar? Mom and Dad finally see it. Not completely, but enough. They've stopped defending her. Good. She tried to tell everyone you were abusive, that you manipulated the court. Did anyone believe her? A few cousins, maybe. But most people asked for proof, and she couldn't provide any. The story fell apart. Daniel nodded. He'd expected as much. How are you doing? Heather asked. Better. Some days are hard, but mostly I'm okay. Dating? God, no. Not ready for that. Fair enough. She smiled. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Doesn't always feel like it. That's because you're a good person. Good people feel guilty even when they shouldn't. A year after the divorce, Daniel attended a family barbecue. This time, his own family. His parents, his younger brother, cousins he hadn't seen in months. Simple, easy, uncomplicated. His mother pulled him aside near the end of the evening. You seem lighter, she said. I feel lighter. I'm glad. I worried about you for a while. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. You went through hell. You came out the other side. Daniel looked across the yard at his family, laughing, talking, living. Simple moments that used to be shadowed by Brianna's performances and his constant vigilance. I did, he said. His mother hugged him. I'm proud of you, Daniel. Not for leaving her. For respecting yourself enough to refuse what she was offering. What was she offering? Conditional love. The kind that required you to accept lies as truth. Daniel nodded slowly. I'm done accepting that. Good. 2 years after the divorce, Daniel saw Brianna at a grocery store in Traverse City. She was in the produce section, examining apples with the focused attention of someone trying to find any reason not to notice him. He could have left, walked the other direction, avoided the inevitable awkwardness. Instead, he pushed his cart toward her aisle. Not to confront, just to exist in the same space without fear. She looked up when he got close. Recognition flashed across her face, followed by something harder to name. Daniel. Brianna. Silence. The grocery store's sounds filled the space. Beeping scanners, quiet conversations, the hum of refrigeration units. How are you? She asked finally. Good. You. Getting by. She looked different. Older, maybe. We're just tired. The performance was gone, replaced by something more authentic and less certain. I heard you moved back to town, he said. Yeah. A few months ago. Found a place near downtown. That's good. Another pause. I'm sorry, Brianna said suddenly. For what I did. How I acted. All of it. Daniel studied her face, looking for manipulation. He found none. Just exhaustion and what might have been genuine regret. Okay, he said. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know. I appreciate that. She nodded, picked up an apple without looking at it, and placed it in her basket. Take care, Daniel. You too. He watched her walk away toward the checkout. No drama. No tears. Just two people who used to know each other, passing in a grocery store. Daniel finished his shopping and went home to the house that was finally completely his. 5 years after the divorce, Daniel sat on his back porch watching the sunset. The yard looked different now. Landscaping he'd done himself, a new deck he'd built with his brother, a garden that actually produced tomatoes. His phone buzzed. A text from Heather. Family gathering this weekend. You should come. Mom's insisting. Daniel smiled. He'd started attending Brianna's family events again, slowly, carefully, but with growing comfort. Heather and her parents had apologized for not seeing the truth sooner. The family had adjusted, adapted, moved forward. Brianna never attended when Daniel was invited. That was the unspoken agreement. Some space was necessary. Some wounds needed distance. He typed back, I'll be there. What should I bring? Just yourself. And maybe that potato salad you make. Dad won't stop talking about it. Daniel laughed. Simple moments. Uncomplicated joy. He'd survived what Brianna tried to do to him. Not just the affair or the theft, but the systematic attempt to rewrite reality, to make him doubt his own perceptions, to paint him as the villain in her story. He'd refused that narrative, held firm to truth even when it hurt. And in the end, the truth had held him. Brianna had lost everything she thought she deserved. The house, the money, the moral high ground she'd tried to claim. Daniel had kept everything she'd never valued. Honesty, stability, and the quiet strength that came from knowing he'd done the right thing even when it was hard.